So you're finally at the end of a long and arduous sales process to find a new managed services partner. The new provider sends over their agreement, and you're rather disappointed to discover the terms and conditions and statement of work really contain none of the things you've asked for throughout the sales process. It's like you're starting from square one. This isn't uncommon at all. What's promised during the sales process is often not included in the agreement. The agreement usually has standard SLAs that don't really quantify exactly what business value you are seeking, and then the operations team or the delivery team often misses the boat in not delivering against the KPIs and SLAs or against the business value that was discussed during the sales process. There's a disconnect that goes all the way from the first sales meeting with the sales team into the operations team that's trying to deliver against value they don't quite understand. Well, there are a couple of things you can do to help keep these engagements on the rails and make sure you get the business value that you had originally intended. I'm thinking of 3 specific documents that need to be created alongside the managed services agreement to ensure compliance against those deliverables. The first one, of course, is the business case. For most companies, getting a managed services agreement approved means talking to a board of directors or a CEO or maybe a CIO to present the business case for hiring this vendor. Including that business case in any kind of governance documentation is important because the vendor needs to understand exactly why they're there in the first place, why they've been hired, and what value the client is trying to seek. So a business case that shows the business value being sought, the next best alternatives, the way of quantifying that business value, that's going to be pretty critical for the vendor to see on a regular basis and to document in the relationship. The second piece is a relationship charter. Relationship charters establish the norms of communication between the vendor and the client. How are we going to talk to each other? What's our communication cadence going to be like? What are we going to include in all those meetings that we have on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? How will we handle escalations? How will we handle issues or conflict between team members? All of these are important issues to cover in a relationship charter, and it's a way of getting the operations team involved in designing the engagement and body into the entire process. So a relationship charter is an extremely important document to put together. Now, along with your business case and your relationship charter, you'll also want to include a vendor scorecard. Terms and conditions like KPIs and SLAs get locked away in this legalese language that is honestly very rarely consulted. How often do you open up a managed services agreement and read through it to understand if the vendor is actually delivering against that? Well, probably not very often. So a vendor scorecard is a distillation of all of those KPIs and SLAs that the vendor committed to in a checklist form. So imagine an Excel spreadsheet where you have all the commitments here, and then you have checks for each month or each quarter whenever you review it to make sure that the vendor is meeting all those obligations. Over the course or over the period of the entire agreement, you're going to see trends. You're going to see that the vendor always falls down in this one specific category, always meets this other category, and being able to track that in a spreadsheet is going to be pretty critical. So to review, you want to include in the governance documentation the business case for why you're having the engagement in the first place, the relationship charter for how the two organizations are going to work together, and the vendor scorecard to show how you're going to measure the vendor's performance against the agreement. This sounds like a lot of documentation to assemble, but it really isn't. But my suggestion is to get everyone in the same room, order in some pizzas or sandwiches, talk through the engagement, talk through the purpose of it, how you're measuring it, and make sure the teams are kind of bonding, and you'll end up with a much stronger relationship between the two teams and a much better chance of creating the business outcome you originally intended in the first place.